So it's now, 17 days, I guess, since the Interac debacle started at Scotiabank. And I asked the other day on Twitter as to what was going to happen, because I'm still owed this money, and the people at Scotiabank, they're like, okay, you need to speak to the people at Interac. Well, you go to the Interac website and they're like, anybody affected by anything to do with this needs to go and speak to the bank. So I know we're only talking $1 here, but this is an example of the type of silliness that happens on a regular basis that I end up having to deal with. So I didn't hear anything back from Interac, and this reminded me of a little anecdote that I wanted to tell you about. So a couple of years ago, well, actually many years ago, there was the financial crash, and as you would know, there was a problem with Lehman Brothers where they went under. So there was a project that was being backed at the time by Lehman Brothers to do with remittances. And for those who don't know what remittances are, basically you've got somebody that comes from one country to another country and they earn money and they want some money back home to the family. So the remittance system is what allows them to input money into a bank account, get it wired to their country of choice, and from there somebody can pick it up. So back to Lehman Brothers. So they collapse, and at this point the project that was being backed was to do with moving money on SMS. So that project gets put aside, people going bankrupt left, right and centre and whatnot. And somebody then buys up these distressed assets quite some time later, and of course the world has moved on, nobody's using SMS any longer, and now I end up finding myself as the iOS programmer on this system where we're trying to get it to work on an iPhone. So as you can imagine, the first step of sending money over a remittance system using an iPhone is you've got to get money deposited into the bank account. And the way to do this was simply just use Interac. So of course this then led to a problem, because Interac doesn't deal with the end users, I use end users as the developer here. You have to go through a third-party integrator. So that's what we did, and the integrator was trying to help us with a problem. So what happened? You've got a web view that would show some HTML, and that HTML had some CSS that would explain how to render it. And the CSS was hard-coded to 640 pixels wide, which was, the smallest VGA screen, I guess, on a desktop that Interac thought anybody was going to use this on. The problem was, with iPhone, it's only 320 pixels wide, which means 320, not physical pixels, but logical pixels. So this suddenly meant that anything that was supposed to fit in a space this big on the iPhone was actually taking up a space of about this much, and you had to sort of scroll from side to side to see the entire Interac web page. So we spoke with the integrator and said, look, here's the problem, showed them what the problem was. They're like, oh yeah, that's definitely a problem, we're going to have to go and speak to Interac about this. So they go off and speak to Interac, and about a week later they come back. It's like, yeah, no, Interac isn't going to budge on this. They're not going to fix it, and so you're basically stuck. So what I ended up doing was basically a man in the browser attack, because we make the request to Interac, and when the information came back, we would say, right, okay, you've sent us the HTML on the one hand and we've got the CSS on the other hand. The CSS is wrong, so we're going to throw that away, and by the way, here's some other CSS that we know works with the system, and plug that in instead, and then forward that on to the browser. So that's how we ended up getting a system up and running that despite Interac, we got it working, not because of, and I have no idea if the system's still running to this day, but anyway, that's what happened back then. So, this is sort of indicative when people wonder why is it, I have an anger sometimes towards some of these companies. It almost looks like I'm just a consumer that has a preconceived bias that everybody's wrong, but no, there's actually some history here. And my history with Interac is that they're not accountable to anybody. They never answer your questions. I mean, I asked a question a couple of weeks ago, they never answered it, and it was the same thing when I was working for the corporations. You know, you have a technical problem, yeah, they're not going to answer it. And yeah, so this, I think, means my existing problem with Scotiabank with this $1, it's probably going to go round and round for a couple of more weeks until somebody finally goes, hang on a minute, like, yeah, somebody needs to take hold of this and actually deal with it. As I said, I know it's only $1. So at this point, it's totally the principle of the matter. But there you go. Like, you know, the circus continues, and yeah, it's a bit grinding. But you know, we have to plug on, and yeah, hopefully soon somebody will get this resolved. And yeah, tomorrow's day 18, so who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. All right.